I raised my alcoholic ex-husband's child after his mother left. I funded his wedding, education, and career. He called her his only mother. I've been married to Jasper for 18 years. When we met, Jasper was a single parent trying to raise Kyle alone. I immediately saw his love for his child, and as I heard more about them, I understood their struggles. Jasper had been through a lot before we met, notably with Kyle's birth mother, CC. From what Jasper has told me, their relationship was strained. CC's alcoholism damaged their marriage and poisoned the home, especially for Kyle. As Jasper confided in me, I realized how hard it was. He told me CC's daytime drinking, even while Kyle was home and needed her attention, caused their arguments. She ignored Kyle, disregarding even the most basic care, such as healthy meals, showers, and homework checks. Kyle's physical and mental condition declined, worsening Jasper's anxieties. Jasper had arrived home several times to find his son crying in a corner, famished and filthy. As a kind parent, Jasper helped CCE improve her condition. He continually pushed her to get therapy and improve as a mother for Kyle, but she disregarded him. As he helped her, CC became increasingly resistant. CC would attack him, throwing objects around the home, screaming, and threatening him with a weapon. Jasper's claim that CC would commit suicide if he left her was one of his most frightening. He felt limited by a misleading strategy, trying to keep Kyle calm while avoiding chaos. Jasper had to step cautiously to handle CC's erratic behavior and be a loving and encouraging father to Kyle. Everything culminated when CC breached a boundary that changed everything. Jasper's mother visited once. She was tough and direct and saw how much CC neglected Kyle in cleaning. CC took some of Jasper's mother's jewelry while there. This impulsive and desperate crime may have been driven by her alcoholism and the need for money to buy more alcohol. Luckily, Jasper's mother caught her red-handed. CC tried to explain her behavior as drunkenness, as if robbing someone was ordinary. Jasper's mother was outraged. More importantly, she was concerned about CC's impact on her son and grandson. She talked to CC and Jasper seriously that night. She told CC she needed help immediately. Her domestic chaos was no longer justified. Jasper's mother warned them that she would call Child Protective Services if CC didn't get help. She wouldn't let things continue because her grandson's safety was at stake. Unsurprisingly, CCC went defensive. She threatened Jasper as she always did when she felt confined, as she had done during their arguments. She said everyone should be patient with her because she was trying to stop drinking and threatened to commit suicide. However, Jasper's mother persisted. CC's ranting and threats didn't faze her. Instead, she sternly but softly informed CC that they would call 911 if she threatened to hurt herself. She could be detained for 72 hours psychiatrically, where she would tackle her issues with an expert. It astonished CC. For the first time, she realized her usual methods would fail. She faced an unconquerable opponent. CC fell silent when she realized her acts were unacceptable. Later that night, CC may have realized she had no choice or sought to escape the growing stress. CC was fed up. Without argument, she packed some of her belongings. Before leaving, she scribbled a brief note that she was done with Jasper and his son. Jasper tried to reach CC and convince her to go to marital therapy to save their marriage for their child, but CC was done. She didn't fight for Kyle's custody during the divorce. Her only concern was receiving a large alimony payment. She relinquished parental rights without reluctance, severing her relationship with her child. Having seen so much, Kyle never got to say goodbye to his mother. She appeared one day and vanished the next. Jasper picked himself up and continued with his child, determined to give Kyle the safe and loving home he deserved. CC became a sad memory for them both, and they didn't contact her. Before I met Jasper, he had been through a lot. He remained a caring father to Kyle. I liked him and admired his perseverance. It was hard to date Jasper because of his son. Kyle was fiercely possessive of his father and didn't want to share Jasper's attention. After his mother's experience, it made sense. He had lost one parent, so I could tell he still feared abandonment. I made winning Kyle's trust my primary priority, even though it would take time, love, and patience. Kyle was intentionally shown that I was here to stay from the outset. Because I understood how fragile his security was, I wanted him to know I was committed to him and his father. I tried to interact with him daily in small ways to show him I valued him as much as Jasper. Helping him with schoolwork, making his favorite dishes, listening to his anxieties, or doing what he liked. I worked hard to build a relationship with him, even if it was simply listening. It was gradual, and I sometimes felt stuck. However, I kept reminding myself that Kyle's confidence had already been harmed and would take time to recover. I noticed Kyle changing over the 3 years Jasper and I dated. The child increasingly confided in me. As his defenses fell down, he accepted me into his life. It was about embracing me into the family, not just surviving. Kyle's approval of Jasper's plan was crucial. Kyle's support of our relationship meant everything to me. We were married to the guy I loved, and Kyle's speech made our wedding day the finest of my life. Kyle spoke movingly about how pleased he was to see his father and how grateful he was to have me in his life in front of our loved ones. I cried when I heard those words because they commemorated our vacation. Jasper and I have worked hard to strengthen our marriage. The ties we establish, the love we share, and the commitment we make define family, and our bond reminds us that family is more than blood. Even though we tried to provide Kyle a safe, loving home, Jasper has remained the loving husband and father I fell in love with. Kyle was difficult to raise. There have been many pleasant and meaningful times together, but also challenging times, especially as a teenager and young adult. Kyle exhibited extreme mood swings, stubbornness, and rage during those years. Jasper and I seemed to have to deal with his early hurt and uncertainty. Kyle would often snap at his father and blame him for his mother leaving, even though Jasper had done everything he could to keep her. Kyle often raged at me. He would blame me of wrecking their relationship and turning his father against him. I had never done it, so hearing those comments hurt. When Kyle acted riskily at school, things heated up. When he had a learner's license, he would sneak out at night and use our car for joy drives with his friends. This was hazardous. Jasper and I would call Kyle to alert him to come home when we woke up to find the car gone. Often smelling of alcohol, he returned home. After 2 warnings for using marijuana in class, he was expelled. Despite these obstacles, I never gave up on Kyle. I was determined to find him a new school to start over after being expelled. I spent hours researching, phoning, and visiting schools to give him the best chance to succeed. I believed Kyle deserved a chance to change his life, even though it was hard. I did everything I could to help him. I attended all of his parent-teacher conferences and encouraged him to join extracurriculars in hopes that he would find a passion and use it to channel his energy. Even though things were hard at home, I made sure he had cheerful, typical birthday celebrations with his friends every year, just the way he liked them. Kyle complicated things for me. He shouted at me in frustration and responded, tried to push me away with his wrath. Despite his nasty statements, I always forgive him as if he were my own child because he was. I knew that underneath all that wrath was a struggling youth who wanted someone to believe in him, even though he didn't. Kyle also attempted to steal from me several times. Instead of disciplining him, I would sit down with him to figure out what was wrong. We even sent him to therapy in hopes that a specialist might help him overcome the underlying issues driving his behavior, because I wanted him to know he could trust me and that I was there to assist him, not judge him. I still thought Kyle had a nice heart and that his rebellion was just the phase. I believed he would overcome everything and find his path with love, support, and patience. Because I loved Kyle and believed he was worth fighting for, I never gave up. Kyle changed considerably over time. His adolescent wrath and disobedience gradually gave way to calmer, more adult behavior. I saw him showing more empathy and compassion for others as he argued less with us. He seemed to be cooling down and getting perspective. One day, Kyle told us how he felt about his mother, CCC. Despite years of separation, Kyle missed her and wanted to know who she was and why she left him. He told Jasper and me he wanted to find and meet her. Kyle was clearly concerned, but Jasper had severe reservations, making it a difficult conversation. Cece had caused my hubby great pain, which he remembered. He was scared that reconnecting with her would reignite old wounds because he knew she had left Kyle without hesitation. He wanted to protect Kyle from the heartache and disappointment of trying to connect with someone who had never cared. I understood Kyle's viewpoint. He had to face the past to discover the answers only his mother could provide, or he would always have unanswered questions, no matter how much he loved his father and our life together. Jasper should let Kyle decide, I said. I explained that Kyle was grown enough to make this decision and resilient enough to face reality, even though he wanted to protect him from more misery. Jasper nodded grudgingly. Despite his reservations, he thought Kyle needed this treatment to proceed. Kyle tracked down his mother. The project was difficult because CC had practically disappeared and her family was reluctant to reveal anything. Kyle's maternal grandmother ultimately felt sorry for him. She made him meet Cece and gave him her address and phone number. Kyle and Cece's meeting was difficult and enlightening. He expected a warm, caring mother, but she wasn't. Although she married again and had more children, she was still an alcoholic. She admitted to Kyle that she broke up their family. She owns her mistakes and abandonment of Kyle and Jasper. Kyle asked Cece why she hadn't checked in on him, and Cece told him she wanted to move on and that he was a reminder of her tragic past. Kyle encouraged his mother to contact him despite her hurtful answer. Kyle foolishly gave in when the woman asked for cab fare. This must have shown Cece Kyle's gullibility and allowed her to use him for profit. Kyle has kept his mother Cece close despite the challenges and fears. Kyle's attachment to his mother has remained strong, even though Jasper and I didn't expect it given Cece's past treatment. Cece would only see Kyle if she needed money. She even left her other kids, the ones she had after leaving Jasper, with Kyle to watch for free while she took care of herself. We felt bad for Kyle, who had such a kind heart, and Cece was exploiting him. However, Kyle would get angry when we tried to explain or show him that his mother was exploiting him. He insisted it was his choice and that we had no right to interfere in his connection with her. Even though he was usually calm, Kyle would draw a line and warn us to back off when it came to his mother. Even though it was painful, we had to let go of this delicate topic for him. Despite our desire to protect Kyle, we knew it would cause conflict. Kyle needed to evaluate his mother. Thus, Jasper and I reluctantly let Kyle continue his relationship with Cece. In the meantime, I focused on loving and supporting him in various ways. Kyle sought me advice on approaching girls. I helped him move and set up his new flat. I visited him weekly with homemade food and stuff. Kyle hated cooking, and I knew he'd live off takeout or whatever was convenient without help. I stocked his fridge with his favorite foods to ensure he had a nutritious and tasty lunch after a hard day. Even if he didn't say it, I could tell he appreciated it because it was my way of taking care of him while I was away. Kyle could always talk to me about his concerns, from girlfriends to everything else. I listened without judging as he sat down and talked about his thoughts. I was glad he felt comfortable confiding in me about his problems, and I was glad we had built trust. Kyle often called me first because he knew I would be calm and empathetic, despite their strong relationship and Jasper being his father. Kyle met Serena a year ago, and I knew she was special immediately. Our sweet, empathetic Serena joined our family immediately. I always wanted Kyle to find stability and happiness, and Serena was everything I envisioned. Kyle proposed to Serena this year after their relationship took off. When she answered yes, we felt like a new chapter began. Since then, Serena and I have methodically planned their wedding. Every minute of working with Serena to make their big day even better has been fun since we love spending time together. Serena knew about our family's troubled history, including Cece's issue. She saw the financial stress caused by Cece's monthly, brazen solicitations for Kyle's money. Serena insisted that Kyle quit supporting his biological mother if she and Kyle were to build a life together after their engagement. Serena told him he could reach Cece without paying. Kyle, who was always sensitive to his mother, disliked this position. The fight started when Serena mentioned the issue. Kyle battled his love for Serena and loyalty to his mother. But Serena persisted, making it clear that they had to prioritize themselves and that their relationship was at risk. Kyle saw Serena's perspective. For the first time in years, he stopped sending Cece money when she called. Serena had an intimate conversation with Cece. In their conversation, she strongly reminded Cece that Kyle was now engaged to her and that she should stop relying on him for financial support because she had a family. Likely, Cece's response to this new border was predicted. She felt betrayed and enraged. In her wrath, she tried to get Kyle to break up with Serena. She knew if he married Serena, he would stop being her cash cow. Kyle ignored her advice. Kyle and Serena married 2 months ago. I proudly and excitedly anticipated this day, knowing how much Kyle and Serena meant to one another. Kyle treated me like nothing at the wedding. I thought it was my imagination, but his actions got clearer over the day. Kyle spoke at the event, thanking Cece, his true mother, for being his lone mother and always supporting him, and thanking his father for being a great son. He never mentioned my name or how I reared him. I had been his mother longer than Cece and helped pay for his wedding. But I was neglected. I was stunned and offended when he didn't look at me. Kyle introduced Cece to Serena's family as his mother and conveyed his joy in having her there throughout the evening. Despite knowing Cece was his biological mother, I felt like my efforts were useless. and he didn't appreciate me. Jasper and Serena were as bewildered and hurt as me. I wasn't expected to be treated so poorly during Kyle's wedding. However, CC seemed to relish the attention. She claimed to be the evening star. She never thanked Jasper and me for raising Kyle. Rejection and misery have plagued me since the wedding. Despite everything I've done for Kyle, his seeming indifference to me is painful. When Kyle called me after the wedding, I expected him to apologize or acknowledge my hurt. Instead, he called to say I shouldn't be jealous of his biological mother, CCC, because Serena had told him my feelings. I found this perspective surprising. I was hurt and upset that he ignored me after all I did for him, not envy. What Kyle said next was devastating. Despite everything I did for him, he stated I would always be his stepmother and CC his mother. It broke my heart to hear this. I felt like my sacrifices, commitment, and care were neglected. It was heartbreaking to realize that my place in his life was shrinking despite my efforts. I cut ties to evaluate my thoughts after this talk. This reality took time to sink in. Jasper was empathetic and wanted to talk to his son about it, but I reminded him that Kyle was an adult and that fighting for something unfair was pointless if he couldn't appreciate me after all these years. I got duped badly. I've had a nightmare raising Kyle since he was a child, helping him through his struggles. I felt hurt that my efforts were neglected. Last time I communicated with Kyle was weeks ago. He called me several times yesterday. I ignored his calls because I needed time apart from him. I answered when he called 5 times. He panicked because CC, who had come to stay with him and Serena for a few days, disappeared that morning. And she gone. He misplaced 2 expensive watches and some emergency cash at home. Given CC's difficult behavior and his wish to avoid arrest, he asked if I could drive Serena and him to face her. I laughed and understood that he wasn't approaching Jasper for help because he knew his father would be furious with him for dating CC, despite her constant indifference. My generosity and ability to help him were known, but his disregard for me ended everything. I told him he had to approach his mother alone to get his possessions back, because I wasn't his mother. Infuriated, he told me he needed me and that I should help him after the wedding. I hung up after telling him his birth mother deserved this. Ida for not supporting my steps and after his abuse of me. Update 1: thanks for letting me know I'm not responsible. Kyle and Serena confronted CC about the stolen jewels and money. She accepted them but didn't return. CC shouted at them for being selfish and that her kids needed the money when Serena threatened to call the police. She added that Serena's kids needed to learn to share because they were Kyle's family. CC regretted nothing. Kyle must have grasped the truth after this. He must have known that helping CC and her children was essential. He abruptly told her to leave and threatened to call the police if she returned. Kyle exclaimed that she had done nothing for him and that he was done with her, despite CC's declaration that she was his mother. Phone apology and lengthy explanation from Kyle. He said he'd come tomorrow to explain why he ignored me at the wedding. Despite being angry and upset, I've decided to listen to him. Update 2: Kyle came over and talked. CC spoke with Kyle before his wedding and demanded he claim her as his mother. Because she thought it would be humiliating if others found out she had abandoned him and that I had raised him, she wanted Kyle to lie and say she had always been a part of his life. Only Jasper's family, Serena, and I knew the truth, but CC knew we wouldn't disgrace Kyle by telling him. She threatened to miss the wedding if Kyle didn't comply. Kyle foolishly surrendered to her emotional pressure. He informed us he took full responsibility for the situation and gaslighted me when I was angered by his choice. He said he understood if I broke up with him since he damaged things. I told him I appreciated his candor but wasn't sure I should trust him. He provided me time to clear my head. Update 3 months after my last entry, I forgave Kyle and moved on. I stopped spoiling him when everyone advised me to. However, I help him if needed. His relationship with Serena is good, and CC is talking to him. In addition, Jasper and I are excited to enjoy our next vacation together next week.